Hello and welcome to VentureJect. We are very happy to again be welcoming our viewers here to our podcast. And today we are very happy to have Reinhard Hiller from Switzerland joining us. Good to meet you, Reinhard.
Hi, Peter. Good to be here. Hello to everybody.
So we are very excited to again see so many signups. We are very, very happy to be again covering the very broad topic and very popular topic of longevity. We are always interested and curious to hear where our viewers and listeners are in the world. We see each time we go on air that we have people from more and more places in the world joining us. So if you will, we would be super happy to see you in the comment section, adding where you are listening from, your city, your country, your continent. Of course, this is live, but you can also watch it re-live later on at a later stage, and we will upload it to YouTube too. If you have any questions during this podcast, please put them in the comments too, and Reinhard will do his best to answer them within our 30 minutes. And if not possible, because of time restrictions, we will come back to you with an answer, either in the comments or with a direct message to you who ask the question. So that was just a little bit of housekeeping. Now let's go to it. First of all, Reinhard, before I go into all the many questions that I have for you today, maybe just if you want to introduce yourself to all the viewers and listeners out there, who you are, a little bit about your background.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Reinhard Hiller. I'm born in Austria, where I grew up. I went to university. I earned a degree in genetics at University of Vienna. Then went to a startup where I developed diagnostic tests for allergies. Then following on from that, I went to South Africa, where I set up a very large omics laboratory, so very diversified, big high-tech laboratory, non-profit company. Later on, another company that focused on precision medicine. And following on from that, I joined Mediclinic, a large private hospital group originating from South Africa with their innovation hub, where I was looking after technology innovation and also precision medicine at group level. So we were operating in Switzerland, in the UAE, and in South Africa. And I left the group last year in August, and have since been working with different types of companies and initiatives. And one that is very close to my heart is Formula 100 Health, which is bringing a particular flavor of support and strategy to longevity.
Thank you, Reinhard. Good that we have your person in place, so we know exactly where to place you, also in terms of background and experience. Also something I hope the listeners will use in their questions to really draw on the resource that is available now that we have you here with us live for 30 minutes. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them either now live or in the comment section later on. We will also be monitoring the comment section afterwards. But longevity is such a big thing, and Reinhard, just let me start at the very top with a broad question, and then we can work our way down into more concrete topics from there. But longevity seems to be such of a mega trend where health is the new wealth. Coming from Formula 100, what could it mean to societies generally if a broader population adopted just parts of this mindset around longevity?
Yeah, I think that it's a good question. I think I would say I would stratify that question in two areas. The first, there's certainly an individual effect that you would have, that you could see when more people would adopt sort of longevity principles. And I think from where Formula 100 is coming from, we're putting a very strong emphasis on exercise as medicine. So these are I think, or more broadly, I would say lifestyle aspects and the things that you can actually do yourself. So very early on, I was developing an interest in lifestyle change and habit formation, and what it means to accomplish that in an interest to come out healthier at the other end. But I also know personally, as well as working with professionals and developing different service offerings in different with different organizations, how hard it is actually to accomplish that. And so it often requires a particular type of infrastructure, support, organization, so community, all kinds of different aspects. And we can talk what they can look like in particular in terms of democratization. So for me, it's a very important aspect is at the individual level and what effect that you can have in a sense in terms of becoming and remaining healthy, but also autonomous and self-directed and self-reliant. Because I think as we're getting older, and basically we want to remain as independent as long as possible. So that is one element. The other element is of course at the societal level. So here I'm often thinking about the work done by Andrew Scott, an economist at the London School of Economics, who has been writing some very interesting books on that topic. So he's referring to what he calls the evergreen society. And what he means by that is if we all basically if we all are healthier for much longer, we can also be more productive if we want to for a much longer time. And that has a big effect also on economic development. There are certain challenges, I think, overall related to that, because on the societal level, particular countries that have pension systems, we see that under strain because of the demographic change. We don't have enough young people to support the system. Coming back to the individual level, because you mentioned health is wealth, there is the challenge of basically sustaining yourself financially as you sort of potentially live longer. So these things are often interrelated, and I think they're often pointing to a more systemic sort of need for change. So I think that's sort of in a sense where we are coming from and how I would stratify and answer that question.
Yeah, and I really like how you mentioned initially the person, because when it comes to health is most important to the individual. I mean, how we feel as a person. Yes, we are also productive citizens of our societies and taxpayers and parents and so on. But most of all, health and good health is about first of all me, and then when I have that health, then I can be all of those other things. So really like how you when you stratify the question, you start by focusing on that individual.
I agree. I think the individual is at the focal point of all of this. I think one of the challenges that we have is that to some extent it depends a little bit on how health systems and healthcare systems were structured historically, that we've become to some extent too reliant on infrastructure and systems who are not coping anymore. And all of a sudden, we're kind of nudged into becoming more self-reliant, and we have to look after our lifestyle and all of that. And it's not that simple, because we're busy people. You may be in a family, you've got kids and all of that, and you go to work. And how do you square that with the things that you could do or should do potentially to remain healthy? So there's also some challenges involved in that.
And I think what you mentioned there is a beautiful segue into I think what many of our listeners I'll have joined today to hear from, what it is that we should do, and hearing from you with your experience with Formula 100 and Health 2050, like where we start both with the individual, with the society. You mentioned before that habits are very difficult to form. Where do we start when we want to, as we are talking about today, democratizing longevity and making it available to many more people?
Yeah, I think there's a number of different aspects there. I would say one important element is that the whole idea of gathering data. I think we know that from variables becoming a lot more available to many people. And exactly, so whether it's an Oura ring or whether it's a band or a watch that you're wearing, I think that's a very useful first start, because you just learn sort of about your kind of how you actually perform it, let's say, and you get some interesting data about yourself as a starting point. And I think the difference, obviously, in terms of the traditional diagnostic testing approach that healthcare systems do, is that these data are also longitudinal. So that's a big difference, because you're not only understanding what a particular parameter looks like once a year when, let's say, you go to the doctor and you've got your health checked, you see it as a trend, and that is a very important sort of guardrail and a reference point. I think the other element, and that's where the democratization hits in as well, is what role do organizations play in basically assisting you to some extent in your efforts to achieve your goals, or assist you with habit change. So if you have a busy life in a company, you have to go to work, and you travel some distance and so on and so forth, how can you possibly sort of accommodate certain practices, let's say go to the gym or some activities in between? And so when in my previous roles, for example, we looked at the role that corporates may have in facilitating that. What we're doing with Formula 100 goes a little bit further. So we're actually sort of, when we started looking at this, we found that many of the longevity efforts and offerings, I mean, you've got different approaches. You've got the companies, the tech companies that offer variables, that really are at the one extreme end of democratization. So allow people to measure and understand better how their body works and how they sleep and other things. But often they fall still short in terms of translation of those data and potentially insights into some habit change. On the other hand, you've got what we would call very infrastructure heavy sort of clinic type of setups that are in particular places that you have to go to, and you can experience a particular do some assessments or maybe do some training exercises on a particular day, but they're located in one place, and it's not easy to scale that. And so we figured that if we take what we've learned and the concepts and the protocols, and we actually start working with companies who have an interest in that space, we can actually help develop programs and offerings that are very contextually based within certain communities and make longevity more accessible and available, rather than just being located in one place, or they're with you as a variable, but then it's much harder for you to maybe, unless you're already prone to making these changes and you're very active already with training or other things, to achieve a certain longevity outcome or a goal.
Yeah, and it's very interesting, your point to the infrastructure heavy part of how we can start to exercise more, because exercise is obviously one key component in longevity, and we also see more and more science coming out about like body weight exercises and so on, which seems to have a lot lower what shall we call it, barrier to entry, where there is no infrastructure, because you are the infrastructure, right? What role do these different training modalities offer in terms of exercise and thus longevity, the infrastructure heavy ones, and then the ones that require no infrastructure other than yourself?
Well, I mean, so the infrastructure heavy places, I would say they are really interesting in terms of, and we developed the program actually in my former role in Switzerland in a sports medicine center. So if you have the opportunity to have a diversity of different tools and pieces of equipment for diagnostic or other purposes in one place, that is obviously very interesting, because you can do a very comprehensive setup of tests and analysis that allow you to kind of understand where a particular person is coming from, and with all of that information, you can then develop a very personalized type of a plan, and if you can, a program. That doesn't necessarily translate, although some of these providers, They also develop long-term programs. You kind of often with coaching that helps you kind of develop certain goals and objectives. On the other hand, and this is where the big tech companies go with the variables, they're looking a lot more at the scalability, and then start using AI, for example, with nudging and other sort of interventions to try and get you to the same point. I think it's often a combination of different things, and from where we are coming from, we would say a very, very personalized type of approach. So the things that I've done before and what we're doing at the moment is really trying to make the most effective use and a rather agnostic manner when it comes to the particular type of technology, but very personalized and with a strong focus on you as the individual, to help you understand firstly where you're coming from, figure out where you need to go or where you want to go, and to help you get to that point. And then in working with organizations, we're trying to factor in ecosystem, infrastructure, all the things that you have in a particular place. And these places can be very different from let's say, a fixed infrastructure place. So we're developing very bespoke programs and protocols that these organizations can deploy in helping their residents or customers to achieve their longevity goals.
Absolutely. No, it's that makes good sense. You mentioned several points, the wearables and the data and the metrics, and there is of course this this saying that there is what gets measured gets done, right? So what role do you think this tracking and all these wearables play in democratizing longevity?
Well, I think, there's firstly, obviously, with the availability of the devices, and also the reduction in cost of these devices, there's obviously a point in making them a lot more available, so people can wear them and can generate the data. The flip side is that it's having a vast amount of data, and I and other colleagues and partners who wear different devices all the time, and we're testing them all the time. You can also be overloaded with data without necessarily getting extra insight. So what is really, really important, and I think we're more and more getting to that point, not least with the use of AI, is we can generate these insights if we effectively analyze and crunch the data. But even then, even having an insight does not necessarily mean that you can then effectively implement it. So I think there's still this effort that is needed to get from point A to B, whatever the B point is, and to kind of sustainably develop a new habit that allows you to reach a particular type of goal. So if you never run a 5K, so you're not going to get up in the morning and start running in a 5K. So it basically requires a particular type of process and some steps to get to that point. And then again, if you're working with residents in an old age home, that is looking completely different as well. So there's always that contextual sort of aspect as well that is relevant.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I cannot imagine a longevity plan in an elderly home containing a 5K run, unless it's of course an exceptionally healthy group of people. But it's this personalized medicine, exercises medicine, is an organization here in Europe, right, where we are based. Just want to mention that. To all our viewers and listeners, that Reinhard has collecting a few of these points that we are covering today in a PDF. And if you want the PDF sent afterwards, please let us know in the comments. Just write yes in the comment section, and we will make sure to get that PDF to you. So just let us know. With that, then look, let's move forward, maybe into some. Here in the last 10 minutes, getting a little bit more concrete when we are talking about democratizing longevity and what we can do to take it from this elite level, from the title of today, into everyday people. And what are 1, 2, 3 things that our listeners here today could start doing already this afternoon if they wanted to just at least focus more on longevity?
Well, I mean, I would say, here I'm thinking a lot about the things that I'm doing myself. I mean, the first one is you can start reading up on the topic, and I would say maybe before you even do that, start thinking about what you want to change about yourself, which could be weight related, or you just want to feel more agile. You want to maybe, depending on your age, you want to be more active with your kids, or you want to be able to start to walk your dog, or your shopping has been difficult because you can't carry a bag. So if we're really talking about individuals who have traditionally not thought about that topic, right? And then also kind of in your mind understand that this is not just about exercise and being fit. It has an effect on your long-term health. So consider this from today's standpoint and what you want to do in 10, 15, 20 years, and you still want to do the same thing. And so it's about preserving that capability going forward. I think that is a very, very important point. Then I would say, I think a very important point for me is, if once you've identified what it is, find the one thing out of a set of 3, 4, or 5 that potentially has the biggest effect. And if you can't figure it out yourself, talk to somebody who you think can. So there's individuals who are health coaches by training and practice. There's many of them here in Switzerland, so very highly professional. So that could be a good starting point. Many gyms are pivoting towards that as well, so you could go there. You might also want to go to your doctor, but often they're not trained effectively in that type of activity. And then maybe the last just practical point I would like to say is that don't do too many things at the same time. So because really changing sort of 3, 4, or 5 variables at the same time is hard. Rather than focus on one thing, get good at it and also start enjoying it. So if you never ran a 5K or whatever distance it was before, start gently and then start also getting into the habit of enjoying it. I think that is a very important point. And I think the other point about the just focus on one variable is because if you do 3 or 4 or 5 things at the same time, you don't know actually what has caused an effect. And so you would also like to understand what is working and what isn't working. If you're doing too many things at the same time, it might be a bit difficult. So I think those are just some practical things that I can think of right now if you really think about democratization.
Yeah, and I also like how you really put the long in longevity there, right? When you talk about that, it's also about your long-term health. Yes, it might hurt right now if you're doing an exercise that you haven't done because that's what you've decided to change. A dietary habit, if you feel hunger, or if it's an exercise habit, you have sore muscles, or if you start carrying a bag, you get sore fingers, right? I even have small wounds on my hands. So that makes really good sense. Also, that to start moving all this exercise from aesthetics, like I want to look good, over into I want to feel good, which is not necessarily the same thing. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, or share your viewpoint on that shift?
I mean, I would say there's nothing necessarily wrong with also trying to look good, because you might find that if you exercise more, or if you want to lose weight, obviously one of the most powerful nudges is to take pictures and just also understand, track your progress, which is not bad. But I would say the functional sort of capability is probably one of the most important elements that we are interested in. So it's also, you're not training ultimately one muscle. You want to really train your body as a whole, and you want to be almost like as capable as you possibly can. I mean, we are thinking a lot about programs. Depends a little bit on the context, but sort of, if you know it, High Rocks as almost like a gamified approach to a whole body type of exercise in a kind of community-based and fun environment is sort of what the way we think about it and where we would go with this, because it's really the whole body function that is important, and not the size of your biceps or can you run the 5K the fastest in the base time. It's ultimately, it is about the balance in terms of these parameters, even though what I said earlier was to kind of start with little things and maybe focus on one at a time. But once you master one, you can then add, and you build this aggregate sort of capability, which ultimately is you as a whole individual, and in terms of function, becoming much better.
Yeah, and when you talk a lot about habits and continuity and keep doing it. I love what you say here, how you can take one thing and then add on the next thing. It's I'm a very avid reader of James Clear's Atomic Habits, where he talks about habit stacking. So when you do one thing, then that automatically leads to another thing, right? If you go for the 5K, then you also do 10 push-ups, right? You stack those two habits together or something, right? I know it's a very basic example, but it's about building it maybe into more of an identity than just a mechanical behavior. What are your suggestions as to how to keep at it when you have decided what to do, and you do it for the first 2 or 3 weeks, when you're really like, just like we just had in January, everybody is on trying to lose weight, right? But they also fall off the wagon again, right? What do you see works well to keep make sure that people keep at it?
So firstly, the habit formation works. There's an insurance company in South Africa called Discovery. They've got a program called Vitality, and they publish something that is called the Habit Index. And they've gathered and analyzed millions of data points from their members. And what they were able to show was that it typically takes 13 weeks on average to either break an unhealthy habit or build a new habit. And also, quite interestingly, the top tier performers in that habit index in South Africa, they've got plus 20 years in life expectancy in comparison to the average South African. So this is actually just the scientific proof that all of this works. I think, to keep at it, I would say the biggest element is, be structured. Try to do the things in the same way. Focus on. So it's easier when you focus on one thing, and you learn it, and you also then enjoy it. You get better, and it becomes easier. And one thing at a time is easier than 3 things at the same time. And then as you develop you set different goals and targets, and then you go after those. And they could be like, okay, so maybe run your 5K faster, or it's a composite target, and you want to VO2 max is actually a very good one, for example, in that regard, because it's an aggregate physiological marker. But then for me, the important element is the joy that you have in doing it. So kind of move from the grudge work to the joy, and then communities help. Gamification communities, but the gamification is where organizations they can come in to help you as an individual or as a community to get to that point or achieve your goals.
13 weeks. That's quite some time to keep at it, but it's good to have the number, right? It's 70 plus 21. It's 91 days, right? So you can start ticking it off, and then or tearing off the calendar pages, and then when you are scientifically just about there. We have 1 minute left, Reinhard. What is the last thing you want to leave our viewers with? And I just want to say thank you very much for everyone in the comments to commenting, sharing your experience. Thank you, Stephanie, and to all you who wrote yes. We will make sure you get the PDF. But Reinhard, over to you for the last word. What is your last takeaway for us today?
Yeah, I would say the key message. Often when we have many conversations, and I do, and so when you think about longevity, it's in a sense it's down to the basics. I mean, you can develop those habits, and exercise is a very, very important element in that. And that's both strength as well as endurance, or aerobic exercise. And then obviously, good diet and a healthy diet is important as well. I'm not saying that you can't do other things in terms of supplementation, but I think there's some very basic things, and you, to some extent, you have to put in the work. But once you start doing that, you will see the rewards, and it's more under your control. So you don't necessarily have to go to expensive clinics. You can, no problem at all with that, but you can do many things on your own, basically, and control it much more, and become more empowered, more self-reliant, and capable going forward. And you're gonna live longer because of that.
Thank you, Reinhard. I will let that be the last words for today. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to all our viewers for joining us, and keep at it in the comments if you have any experiences you want to share or any questions that comes to mind. I will be monitoring the comment section and forwarding the questions to Reinhard. So please keep at it. Longevity is a long stretch. It's a lifelong thing. So all the best. Thank you, and have a nice day, all of you.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.